Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Herculean Physique, I'm joined by the one, the only, the legendary, the artistic Ryan Foley. Greetings, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing really good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward, as always, to our conversation.
Same here. Yeah, it's boy, it's great to come on here and talk to you again. Boy, to just kind of to dive into the subjects that we wanted to go through and cover tonight. Before we get started, I just wanted to go through and kind of give a little bit of a preface to let people know that. So one of the reasons why I like to come on here and talk with you is because you have a tremendous amount of bodybuilding experience, and so therefore I'm able to learn from you, and then hopefully we can put a good positive message out there for a lot of people. But unfortunately, a lot of times I have to go through and figure out stuff for myself as far as what works and what doesn't work. And so a lot of times that can involve almost a sort of reverse engineering where I discover something and then I go through and I work out with it and I test it for myself. And then I have to go through and kind of figure out, okay, well, is this really the best route that I need to go down and stuff like that. So whenever I come on here and talk with people, talk with you, the thing that I want the people to come away from most importantly is that again, everybody is different and everyone's going to have different experiences. And so you have to be smart enough with your gym IQ to be able to go through and take in what you and I are talking about and to be able to apply it to their own workout routines. So everyone's going to be different, and so it's wanting to go through and elevate that gym IQ to figure out. We're not just on here telling you what to do, but we're explaining why we do it. And so over the last couple of weeks, I've been going through and doing a little bit of experimenting. So again, everyone is going to be different. You could have maybe your arms are a little bit longer, or maybe you have a longer torso, or maybe your legs might be a little bit shorter than some people. And so you're going to find different exercises that uh, just feel more natural to you for whatever reason. I mean, I'm sure they could get in there and scientifically diagnose it, why this feels so much better than this other exercise. But so for me personally, I was curious because I feel very comfortable whenever I'm doing a deadlift in what's called a trap bar. It's like a diamond shape that is positioned out there, and so you step inside it, and so as a result, your arms are at a neutral position, and that neutral position just always feels much more comfortable to me than it does with a barbell deadlift. And so I was really curious. It's like, am I, does the barbell deadlift feel weird because I don't do them enough? Or do they, feel weird? And so that's the reason why I don't do them. And so I'm trying to figure out what that was. So I was really experimenting this time around with the barbell deadlift. So I'm just curious, in all of your lifting, have you ever come across something like this where one exercise feels a little bit better than the other, just based on a little minor variation?
Oh, sure. And that's why I like experimenting with what I call weightlifting toys or bodybuilding. There are equipment or including bars of all sorts that are shaped differently, and they redistribute the weight or the balance differently, and it gives you a different way of doing the same exercise where it hits the muscles slightly differently. So I love experimenting with things like that, and finding exercises that hit many different areas at once. Like, for instance, hammer throws. Those aren't just for your biceps, but for your entire arms. They hit every muscle. And then the Zotman, which are the alternating, uh, I guess, uh, dumbbell exercises that where you alternate with the up and down with the palm. And I follow what feels right at the moment, even if it doesn't feel easy or good. And different things feel different ways at different times, not just with me, but with everybody. And like you said, we're not here to give you the miraculous technique that will help solve all your problems. We're here to share information because we've been on this journey for a very long time. and we're still students of the journey, and we will always remain students of the journey. So we're not medical professionals. We're like friends, chance met on the road and sharing flag and a veil around the campfire together, exchanging tales of the perils and the benefits of walking the path that they walk and learning and process. Not everything you're told is going to work for you or will pan out, but sometimes you'll get treasure. It'll make your journey a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable. So that's pretty much what's going on over here. And let me say that I learn from you all the time too. I may not be able to do the exercise, have the exercise anymore, but I'll adopt what you're saying and play with the technique. And I'll find things we'll keep doing for months until the day that they no longer thrill me to do them. And I'll shelve them for a while and do something else.
Right. So, and that's kind of what I was doing with this most recent variation is going through with these dumb, or I'm sorry, with the barbell deadlifts. So because I was working with a very heavy weight. I do work out in the public gym, and they have an area in the back that I lovingly call the dungeon. It is not climate controlled in the least bit, and boy, we're deep into summer at this point, so the heat out there can be pretty intense, but it works for me. And so in going through and doing that, I was experimenting with these, doing what I consider to be some pretty heavy weight with these barbell deadlifts. And this is not something that I regularly do. I rarely lift heavy because it is counterproductive to my goals in the gym. And boy, so just to preface that, I found an article, and this was dated on March 17th of 2026. And this is from the ASCM, which is the American College for Sports Medicine. So these are the people that are out there and they're doing serious, serious research. And again, what they're saying is that consistency beats complexity. As long as you're coming back again and again and again, that's really going to end up being the key to success. So we've talked about it here before, but boy, it bears repeating. It The best exercise that you can do is the exercise that you do. So it's finding whatever it is that excites you, that you find fun to do. And for me, I do find lifting weights to be fun. I go there and I enjoy myself, whether it's learning a new technique or trying to go through it and get a new personal record. I enjoy lifting weights, and so if you come back and you're going to come back, consistently day after day after day. I do understand that some people, man, life gets busy, and I completely understand that and I sympathize with it. But so my argument has always been, so you can go to the gym, let's say 3 times a week, and so you put in 2 hours worth of work. But I'm going to go to the gym for 6 hours or for 6 sessions a week, and I'm going to put in an hour worth of work each time, and I'm going to generate much more force on that sixth day for my 1 hour than you will on your third workout of the week. When you're in that second hour, when your body starts to get fatigued and all that sort of stuff. So if we take that concept and we stitch it in here to where instead of doing, so I was lifting very heavy weight, but this time around I changed up my technique. And so the idea is instead of doing one set of 3 reps, I said, let's do 3 sets of 1 rep. So I would just lift it once, I'd set it back down, and then I'd walk around the dungeon, and then which is not a massive area by any stretch of the imagination, but so it's, hey, let's walk over to the dumbbells, we'll walk back. So this is not me with long rest times in between my lifts, but just enough. And so it's me, I'm not getting on my phone, I'm not checking text messages, so it's walk to the end of the dungeon, come back in, cinch back in, and so you're just doing that one very heavy lift and then setting it back down and rinse and repeat. Because I think a lot of times when you go through and you do these really heavy reps, you do the first one, and the first one's going to be the most difficult. But because you're teaching your body, hey, okay, I want to go through and lift this weight, But then by the second time, by the time the second one rolls around, maybe your form is starting to get a little shaky. Then by the time you get to that third rep, you're pulling everything you can. And I do understand the concept of that getting to muscle failure is where the growth lives. But I think in this case, it was more along the lines of, hey, let's put everything we can just into this one lift. And essentially, what we're doing is we're teaching our body a couple of different things. So, with just the one rep that you're going to go through and lift, fatigue is less of a factor because your muscles aren't starting to break down as quickly. And it's you basically teaching your body not to panic when you're under heavy weight. And this is your way of coming through and telling your body, hey, we're just going to do this one lift. And I mean, all those neurons are going to be firing, but this is what you need to feel in order to know what it's like to go through and lift that really heavy weight and then set it back down. So I know that you're not going through and lifting heavy, but not lifting heavy anymore. But whenever you were experiencing something like this, did you ever experiment with this style? I mean, I'm curious to know if I'm on the right track with something here, or I mean, have I fallen backwards into a concept that has been out there for a really long time, and I'm just stumbling upon it now?
Well, nothing is wasted as long as you learn something from it. And just because something doesn't work for you now might not work for you until later on when you acquire more knowledge or if you've experimented with other things. But I find that constant experimentation keeps my routine fresh. And I also like to push to the limit, even if I'm doing light weights. And that's where the dynamic tension or the isometric isotonic stuff comes in. Now, it must be said that you're not going to look like a bodybuilder by doing these exercises. You look like Charles Atlas. You look like all the guys who were bodybuilders back in the early days of the sport when it was called physical culture. So don't look to be like Conan by doing these exercises, but you will be muscular and you will get larger. And what those exercises do by pitting your body against your body or even your mind is they'll give you a great awareness of your muscle. So that, like, for instance, let's say you're traveling, so you can't take your gym with you. You take some dumbbells, some light dumbbells. You can do sets, but it's very light, the weight. But you know what a heavier weight feels like. So you can make it feel as if it's heavier by using the tensions in your body so that you can duplicate the feeling of you lifting a heavier weight. Or you can keep it light and do something else and do light weight workouts. So I find that when I need to take some time off for whatever reason, using those techniques to ease back into lifting weights is very helpful for me because especially become aware of my body and its tensions and it wakes up memories of workouts past. And then I'm able to transition to the weights in a very short period of time. Whereas for a lot of people, if they stop something, it's very difficult for them to restart it. I have steps that have been tried and true over an entire lifetime of playing with weights that will get me back on the track within a week. So I find it
No, that is all absolutely fantastic advice. And so again, and man, it really rolls into what I wanted to inform people about. So again, like what are the negatives if there are any? Okay, so let's say what are the negatives of going through and lifting this really heavy weight for this short amount of time? So again, this is where we have to get into what are your goals? Do
right.
you want just raw strength? Do you want power? Because and so or are you just wanting to go through and develop a physical look? So if you're wanting to develop power, so say if on the football field you're going through and you're lifting that weight at a very very fast rep because you're looking to build that power. If you're wanting to build just pure raw strength, something like a power lifter would do, then yes, you're lifting very heavy for a very small amount of reps. But so for me, it's kind of counterculture to what I'm attempting to achieve, which so with you're only doing reps of one, even though if you're doing 3 or 5 of them. So I think what you're doing there is very quality reps, and that's really the key, is that you're generating this quality. But this is only something that's going to be done for me personally for a very short window. I mean, it's a week at the most. So, like, if I was going to transition between, so they say you're supposed to change up your workouts about every 8 to 12 weeks. So, we've closed out the end of this workout window, and we're going to move on to something else. But in the meantime, let's go through and let's lift this really heavy weight. Or maybe we go through and hey, let's do cardio based, and let's add more cardio in, just for that week to kind of let your system go through and reset. So again, going back to talking about so I believe in volume training. I try to train every single day, even if on my day off it's just me going up and doing cardio for an hour. It's so what I figured out is, as I'm doing these very heavy lifts, man, that it gets expensive when it comes to your muscles. You are paying a cost to go through and put your muscles under that kind of strain. And so to me, there was at one point, some point last week, where it wasn't an issue of, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. It's the fact I can't go to the gym. It's to go through and listen to my body and say, hey, man, we're getting ready to shut down. So you need to go through, you need to take a day off. And so I did. I was walking around like an old man. It's my back was hurting, my legs were killing me. But by going through and taking that day off, it allowed me to kind of go through and reset. So this is a thing where it's not something that I recommend people train if you're trying to develop, again, like you said, that bodybuilder look. It's not something that I recommend, that lifting heavy. And obviously we're not doing this with every exercise, because then that stuff could get, tremendously dangerous. But so this is something that we're talking about as far as like the deadlift or the barbell squat, something like that. So I'm going through and I'm lifting really, really heavy, but again, it cost me too much. And so I have to start rethinking, okay, well, so if this forced me to go through and take a day off, I probably actually went too hard because it compromised the next day. So now again, everyone's different. Maybe there are some people and they're like, I don't want to go to the gym every day, or I can't go to the gym every day. I completely understand that. There's someone watching this right now and they've got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be at the airport to fly to Pittsburgh or somewhere. So just going to the gym that day was not, possible for them. But I'm very lucky in that I've got my structure set up to where I can go to the gym every day. And that's kind of I go through to start my day the proper way, and, getting into that right mindset, that right mind frame. So going through it and doing this heavy lifting, even if only for a week, but then to bring back the point that you made, yes, absolutely. What you'll find is that once I shifted away from that really heavy weight, I went through and started doing other exercises. And again, I wasn't intimidated to pick up a heavier amount of weight. And it felt almost like, oh, wait, I'm capable of lifting this. It allowed me to instill confidence. So that way I was more comfortable whenever I shifted back to that lighter weight. So I think it's a great way to go through and build strength, but just not something that you want to do every single time.
I agree, and I'm like you. I like exercising every day unless I'm totally physically unable. I'll find some way of exercising. And I've divided, like you have your uh, model for dividing the different aspects of your work. I have mine as well. I have meditation, I have energy work, I have no equipment, and then I have equipment, which includes weights and all the bodybuilding equipment. And then I do something in these categories every day, and I have a schedule where each part of my body gets exercise at least twice a week. And I aim for every day. Sometimes that's not possible, but I'll get at least 5 or 6 days a week, almost every week. So if I
And
make,
so, yeah, what they're saying is to hit those muscle groups, for growth, like one of the optimal amounts. They said was like 10 sets a week per muscle group. So yeah, you get to a point where you do have to go through it and start breaking that down smartly if you want to go through and make sure that you're targeting everything in an equal amount.
and I include muscles like my face, my eyes, what do you call it, my throat, just different things. My voice, my tongue, what do you call it, my toes, my ankles, those would be body parts too. And I broke up my body into these areas. And then again, just make sure that they're getting some sort of exercise during the week. And I pay special attention to the things like arms and chest and back and abdominals and legs, So there's intensity and the amount of resistance I'm using for each of these things. Um, I wanted to go back to the gym, and I finally wound up back in the gym because I'm taking physical therapy. So I get to go to the gym, and it's very sad. I used to um, warm up my legs by doing 400 pounds for each leg on the leg press machine. That was my warm up. And now I'm doing like less than 100 pounds with both my legs. So I feel very humbled. But it's lit a fire under me that I want to get back as much of my strength and as much of my flexibility as I possibly can. So I'm like happy to be going to the gym, even though it's for therapy.
So I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but we've been tremendously honest with each other, and I really appreciate that. So if you would, and I know you're the host, and I tend to come on here and ramble just a little bit.
Oh, you're my friend, and you're a fellow sojourner in the same lands, and you're also an artist who has taken the heroic tradition and you've reissued it through your work to a new generation. So you're
Well,
I'm honored.
I, I thank you for that. I do. But so now explain to our the viewers, why have you had a dip in your in your performance here? I mean, if you don't mind talking about it.
I don't mind. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and that is my challenge right now. And there's a loss of balance. There's a loss of strength. There's a constriction of the body, and there's shaking, which can become quite extreme and is often uncontrollable. Um, there's a medication for it called carbidopa levodopa, which is one of the few medications for it. But the thing is that once you've taken a certain amount in your lifetime, it won't work for you anymore. And there's nothing else that I know of to substitute with it. So I'm working on keeping my dosages low. And again, I'm not telling people to keep their dosages low. I'm just finding that if I have too much of the carbidopa levodopa, my shaking becomes uncontrollable. But if I have one or two pills a day and keep it there, the shaking is more manageable. So I've told this to my doctor. They know that I'm doing this, and it's being monitored. But there's one aspect of it. The second thing is dietary. There are some foods not that cause Parkinson's disease, but that exacerbate the condition. So I have to I can discover what these would be for me, and then adjust my diet, and blood sugar, which I'm diabetic. Even though I'm like in the high normal range, it affects the Parkinson's also. So I have to balance that. And like with anything else with the diet, I found that mostly the keto diet or the carnivore diet or the Mediterranean diet, that type of diet works well for me, or the Atkins diet. And it works for me, but not all of the items on the diet work equally well. So I can be eating a certain way, the same thing every day, and it'll work until the day that it doesn't. And then it becomes a liability rather than a benefit. So like peanut butter, when I first was diagnosed with diabetes, peanut butter was fine. I could eat as much peanut butter as I wanted. So I relied on that for my calories, for my fats, and for protein and so forth. Then one day I had the same amount of peanut butter, a tablespoonful, and my blood shot up, my blood sugar. And it's been that way ever since, for years now. So once or twice a month, I'll try some peanut butter, almond butter, and it's a crapshoot. Some days it'll have very little effect on my blood sugar. Other times it'll knock it all out into orbit. So I have to watch that as well. So again, everyone has challenges. I'm not happy that I got Parkinson's disease. But it's my challenge, and it's one of the fastest growing neurological diseases, so I'm not alone. And it seems in large part to be due to insecticides that are sprayed on food or on golf courses. And a lot of athletes who play on fields are disproportionately high in their chances of getting Parkinson's.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so I joined an organization called the Parkinson's Avengers. And yes, it is inspired by Marvel's Avengers. I figured they needed Hercules too, so I can honestly tell people I'm on the Avengers.
Sure. Right.
We've been doing things like small things, like my town signed proclamation that they're going to dedicate some time and energy towards awareness of Parkinson's, and they kept the blue light lit during Parkinson's Month for a week rather than a day to get the awareness there. I suggest an ad hoc committee to study the effects of Parkinson's in our community here in places where people are more likely to get it. We have like 6 golf courses within an hour's drive from here, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. And I'm going to be at community night where we'll be giving out books like I always do, and exercise equipment that people use like I always do, but also have information about Parkinson's. And forgive my French, but there's an organization called Fuck Parkinson's, so I'm going to be into that, because that's the attitude I have. And so again, my life is different. I have something to lend my attention and my energy to that will make a difference in someone's life, hopefully, and at least shed light on what's going on. And then hopefully wake up enough people where they address this once and for all so that nobody has to go through it.
It's inspiring. It really is. And it's do you think so again there's the divergence somewhere at some point there's another multiverse out there where you weren't going through and lifting all these weights and all that sort of stuff. Something else grabbed your attention and pulled you that way. And so as a result, that version of you is not, do you feel like that version of you would not be as strong when it comes to combating Parkinson's? I mean, do you think that going through and being in the gym, does that make you, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, not like more impervious, but I don't know, I'm not explaining this correctly. I mean, is being in the physical shape that you're in, does that help you keep the disease at bay?
I would say yes. I'm almost 70 now, so I'm in the winter of my years, and I've spent a lot of my time because again I'm limited in my movement to reviewing the past. They didn't do that. If you die, I'm doing well. I'm still alive. I'm reviewing my past and see what lessons I could have or should have learned, or what things I should have done applied, and not regretting my life. You know, I've lived as good a life as I possibly can, and I'm very happy with my life for the most part. But just reviewing, and one of the things was why the muscles. And part of it was I'm Greek, so I was raised on the stories of the heroes. And I happened to be born during the Peplum era, the sort of famous cinema era, where these things were playing on TV, and there was also a cartoon called The Mighty Hercules, and so I grew up with all that. And looking at all that, and like how much was I predisposed to take this path, and what would I have done differently, I found that I've explored many things in my life, and with many things I stayed traditional, and others I didn't. I went like with the paranormal explorations and things like that. Went way outside the comfort zone of our society, but I rejected many things from my background also. So it seems that for whatever reason, it wasn't just my conditioning and my exposure as a child that made me go this particular way. There was something inside of me that resonated very powerfully. And the stories that I read and wrote about were inspired by the discovery that people who are not Greek have these stories too. So it wasn't just a Greek thing with Hercules and Jason the Argonauts and so forth. I had a teacher in grammar school that Mastery of the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So I discovered that not only culturally were there other stories, but you can make up stories set in the heroic movie. So that inspired me when I was looking for my way of approaching life to try to find and apply that to my life. I'm not a violent person, even though I've taken sword fighting and some martial arts and did that in my youth for a little while. I'm not a violent person, and I didn't want to be in a position where I could hit things or beat things up. So I looked at the metaphorical angle. What are the monsters affecting our society, and what monsters do I choose to fight, and how will I fight it? Using the imagery and the energy of the archetypes, but without physically like fighting anything. And I started applying that in my life, and I led me mostly to the human services field, in the education field, where I had two careers, one in each, and then I discovered what was missing was the entertainment part. So I had a television show eventually. Now I have the podcast. We used to do guerrilla theater, which is like live impromptu theater in New York City, like looking for the Grail at 3 o'clock in the morning and asking people questions about the Grail and just do things like that. So again, there's no right or wrong. It's just what I chose to do and what I felt the best. And I've experimented with me differently. I've had jobs where I wore three-piece suits and ties and things like that early on in my career. And then I discovered that if I was good at my job, I could be as eccentric as I wanted to be. If they wanted me badly enough, they'd even pay me more. I've been hired by people who didn't want me on the playing field. So they just hired me to do, very little or nothing. So you live, you learn, you make decisions. Things work for a while, then they don't work anymore because the world changes, and then you have to adapt as best you can. And change is good because you grow through change. And now I'm rambling.
No, it's all it's I find it fascinating. I really do. And but you brought up something that boy, if I can throw in just my 2 cents with this. So we go through and we go on these journeys, and there are these odd universal truths that we tend to come across by going through and doing this experience. And one of the things that you brought up, so again, I'm like you, I'm going to be one of the least violent people that you're ever going to meet. And so instead of uh, even when I play like World of Warcraft, I'd rather face a computer than I would a human opponent. I'd like for all of us human opponents or all the human team to fight against the computer. So that way we're all working together. So that very much appeals to me as opposed to a PvP situation. It's not mastery over anyone else, it's mastery over myself.
Right.
And it's trying to be better than I was yesterday. And so at my gym, um, they have a leader board. They're of the most active members, and so they refresh that at the start of every month. And I knew I'd been putting in the work, and so I was a little curious, like where am I ranking on the list? And so I walked in and I checked what my standings were. And so there's a young lady that's there, and what you'll discover if you get into a regular program for people at home, once you start to get into a regular program, there's I get the Venn diagram where you're going to overlap with a lot of the same people because we tend to become creatures of habit. And if you're in there a long time, you're going to start to see the same people over and over and over again. And then the weird thing is, like through some sort of cosmic spin up, I don't know how it's possible, you'll go to the gym at a completely different time than you usually go, and you still see the same people. And it's like, so I always thought that was really funny. So I'm walking in, I'm looking at the leaderboard, and there's a young lady, and she's at the station there, and she's soaking her rag with the antibacterial stuff to wipe the equipment down. And I just, kind of thumbed over at the board and said, I can't decide. Now, keep in mind, she doesn't know my name. I don't know hers. We don't wear name tags or anything like that. So I motioned at the board and said, I can't decide if that's, something to be proud of or if it's a sign that's saying I really need to get a life. Because self-deprecating humor is kind of my go-to. It's either that or like a grandiose, hyperbole that no one can ever take seriously. I was explaining that comedy style to my two supermodel girlfriends as I was driving around in my Lamborghini last week, and they completely understood what I was talking about. So, but I tend to downplay a lot of things, myself especially. And so I didn't mention that, what ranking I was. And so she says, "Oh, I made it on the board for the first time. I'm number 14, but I'm on the board." And I immediately switched and went into cheerleader mode. And I was just like, "Oh my, that's awesome. Great. Keep up that good work. I'm proud of you." And so it wasn't me coming along going, "Oh, you were 14, but you weren't number one, were you?" Yeah, I mean, and if I would have been that way, I would have crushed her
Right,
self-esteem, and that is not the gym culture that I want to be a part of. It's
right.
to go through and elevate everyone else. And so that's why I want to go through and explain to people, man, if you're self-conscious about the gym, if you think that everyone's going to be looking at you or making fun of you or something like that, I mean, yeah, there are jerks. There are going to be jerks everywhere. You can't avoid them. Marcus Aurelius talked about that from 2000 years ago, about how there's always going to be jerks and we can't get rid of them. But for the most part, most of the people there, they want you to succeed. They want you to, because it's not a zero sum game. Your success doesn't diminish mine in the least bit. And so if we can go through and elevate those people, man, that's the best feeling in the world. So I wanted to come along with her and be like, 14, fantastic. But whether you're on the board, whether you're not, whether you're first or last or whatever, I mean, even if you're not on the board at all, as long as you're still going back consistently, time after time after time, the results, they're going to show up.
Yes, that's very true. And thank you for uh, encouraging her. I like encouraging people too, whatever they're doing, as long as it's a positive thing, to, and acknowledge their success in whatever path they've taken.
But so, man, just to circle it, okay, we'll try to get back on track here just a little bit. But not that any of this was bad, I'm not saying that. But so one of the things I was really excited to come on here and talk with you about is, as a result of those really heavy lifts, which, man, was just tearing me down, I was like, okay, before I get started on my next 8 week or 12 week rotation, where I'm going to get back into that hypertrophic rep range, which for me is, around 12 to 15 is what I average. So again, it's higher reps, a little bit lower weight. But so I was like, so let's swing completely in the opposite direction, because again, whether I found it or whether it found me, but so they said, so the video was talking about, because again, I get a lot of the algorithm has me. It knows what I like. And so it's like, hey, here's Avengers, and hey, here's Batman, and here's bodybuilding, so you should do this. And so I get those videos all the time. And so again, this is the thing. You watch the video, you go, all right, yeah, I'll give that a try and let's see if I want to incorporate it or not. And so one of the things that they were talking about doing was isometric holds. And so these isometric holds, again, it's no weight. It's
Right.
just your body weight going through and doing stuff. So they gave me this rotation of 6 different exercises. And so one of the ones, so again, the isometric holds, it's where, again, you're not doing any sort of weight. And probably the one that I can best describe to everyone without breaking up charts and diagrams is the wall sit, where you just go through, you put your back up against the wall, your hips and your knees are at 90 degrees, and you just sit there and you hold it for as long as you possibly can. And so the way you're supposed to do it is you're either supposed to keep your hands crossed in front of you or you hold them out in front of you. But one of the things that I found that I did is that I would drop my hands down, not to support my weight, but just so I could feel my legs, so I could make that mind muscle connection. And as I'm sitting there against the wall, you feel your muscles start to shake. And that's where you are recruiting all those muscles to go in and get that strength. And so this is where I know you've talked about isometric holds in the past, and this is really kind of like my first foray into this thing. So what is your experience with isometric holds?
I do a lot of those now, especially. I first learned about isometric scientifics by being a student of Charles Atlas as a kid. I believe my father sent me to the course. So when he wasn't home, I used to play with his weights and look through the books and so on and so forth. And then eventually my life path took me to work with and for the Charles Atlas organization. So I did that for a while, and they're nice people, and I enjoyed my interactions with them and my relationship with them for a number of years. But it's it's again, it increases my awareness, and you could elicit visualization. Like I do what you described several times a week.
Okay.
I'll lean against the wall and then sit down and I'll hold it. I won't hold it for as long as I can because my balance is off. So if I held it for as long as I could, my muscles might seize, and then I wouldn't be able to get up. If I'm by myself, it wouldn't be a good thing. It would be a good thing. So I do it for counts of 12 slowly. So I'll do different sets of 12 reps each, and hold it and so forth. Sometimes it'll be double. So I'll try to lower it a little bit so that my legs are not at 90 degrees, and my pelvis is lower than my knees. So I find that it works great. You know, I'm aware of the muscles, the tension muscles, the muscles are definitely getting worked upon. And a lot of things that happen when you're lifting weights are there, all the elements, and you even have to lift the weight. And I find also doing things like this, interlocking my hands,
Sure.
Foley, that increases the tension on the arm muscle significantly. Then I switch and do the other way, or I'll push like this for my triceps, like this for my biceps, like this for my forearms. And it's not as good as a weight workout, but it's on its way to being as good as a weight workout. And if you can't do the weights for whatever reason, like if you're sick or you can't go to the gym, you can definitely have a really good isometric isotonic workout. There used
So
to be
it,
a
oh,
site,
go ahead.
there used to be a site called Zen in the Art of Self-Resistance. No longer there, on Angel Fire, in the years. And I was fortunate enough to have printed it out when it was still around. But every time I've looked for it for the past 6, 7 months, I haven't been able to find it anywhere, which is unfortunate. But the Charles Atlas course is still a really great way of discovering that aspect of bodybuilding.
Well, so in going through and studying this, so again, a little bit of a reverse engineering where I went through, saw the video. I was like, okay, so we're going to go through these different exercises. And then I started studying in as to more as like, so why is this so effective? And so one of the things that they talk about is the benefits of going through and doing these isometric holds. So one of the first ones is going to be joint relief, where you're not going through and you're not stacking 300 pounds worth of weight on your shoulders. So it's going to be a little bit more of a different movement. There's also going to be high muscle activation. So again, your body's going through and it's recruiting all these different muscle fibers to hold that position in place. And so again, that's where I recommend, going through, if you're doing that wall sit, go through and touch your legs and you'll feel that vibration as you're getting to a point where it's starting to break down. Now, you did, I mean, 12 seconds, that doesn't sound like a lot until you start doing it. And then suddenly you're sitting there and you're like, oh man. And so I think a lot of this is about building mental toughness. It's being able to go through and sit with that pain that you're in. But then so the idea behind this is in the video that I saw. So they said this was a program that was developed by the Soviets because they went through and they figured out, hey, if you're going through and you're doing, so let's say you're going to do a squat, so your muscles, you're dropping down in that squat, so there's tension on them then, and then you're driving up, but that's 4, 5, maybe 6 seconds at the most. So you're not really keeping that muscle under tension the way that you can with, say, like a wall sit. But then also the idea is that it's safer for failure. So whenever you go to give up, you just drop and you can get out of it fairly easy without having to hurt yourself. So one of the examples that is just for whatever reason, I have a lot of difficulty when it comes to doing pull-ups. I've got too much mass and not enough strength, and so it doesn't feel quite accurate for me. So they recommended starting out with what's called a dead hang, but it's more of an active thing where it's again, you just it's exactly what it sounds like. You go through and you grab up above you and you just hang. But the difference with an active hang, instead of letting your arms go all the way out, you're keeping tension in your back by imagining that you have a pencil in between your shoulder blades. And so you're trying to keep that in place. So now as a result, it's you're not just hanging there, you're putting all that strength, that tension up through here in your upper body. So by going through and just doing little things like that. But what I never understood so it's like the negative, the drawback of this, if we're going to go through and use this, which is why I don't think it's something that you could do on a regular basis to completely replace your lifting weights, is that whenever we go through and we do a bicep curl with dumbbells, barbells, machines, whatever, if you just go through and you just hold that weight at 90 degrees, you're only going to be strong at that 90 degrees. So you're not getting the elasticity of the muscle whenever you go through and stretch it all the way out and then curl it back in. So that's the reason why you go through. So people ask, hey, how come we just don't just get a weight and hold it? Because again, you'd only be strong in that position. You want to be able to go through and do the full extension, which is where they talk about that full range of movement. But so again, this is something that is, again, much the same way with the heavy lifting, you're not going to get as much hypertrophy. And that's what I'm trying to use for my routine, is to try to generate that. But again, if we're throwing in here, if we're in between these two different exercise groups, where it's like, I'm going to do this for 8 weeks and I'm going to do this for 8 weeks. For this 1 week in here, let's go through and add this in. Or it could be something that you use to add a little flavor into your regular exercises. Because now I will admit, this 6 exercises that they wanted me to do. So you run through a circuit of those. And by the time you get done doing that like 3 times, it was like a 20-minute workout.
Right.
So because I'm doing this and I'm experimenting for the first time, I don't want people to see me as I'm stumbling and fumbling my way through this thing to even know if I can even do any of these exercises. So I'm doing it in the dungeon. Now, granted, it's 6:30 in the morning, so it's not sweltering hot out there. But I mean, I came away from it and I'm lathered up in sweat, and I'm looking at my watch and I'm checking the heart rate and going, holy cow, my heart rate is high for going through and doing these little simple exercises. But so just by going through and adding in this neat little variation to the routine, now it's like, okay, this is something that I need to do a little bit more of. So maybe instead of spending more time on the rowing machine, maybe I'm going to go through and do this. So it's like you said, go through and work with something until it doesn't work anymore, and then you may go through and you want to go through and change it. But just by going through and making those little tiny changes, they can make a big difference.
I found also, and again, this works for me, to do the tension exercise, the isometrics and the isotonics, either before I'm working on a body part or after. Kind of like as a warm up and a cool down.
Sure. Yeah.
That increases the amount of awareness and blood that's going to the muscles up.
Okay. So I mean, if you were going to go through and try to target, okay, so like we can do the wall sit, and you're like, oh, okay, that's all right. And I'm going to do what they call it, a pike push up. It's where basically you're forming a V with your body and you're doing a push up, but your butt is like way up in the air, and so it's designed to keep all the tension all up here. Is an isometric hold, if you just go through and flex, does that count as an isometric hold if you just went through? So I mean, yeah, you get done with so you go through and you burn out by doing those bicep curls, and then whenever I set the weight down, I will go through and I'll just flex to get as much blood as I can into that. Does that count as an isometric hold?
I would count it as isometric.
Okay.
sun is an isometric fold also. And when you told me the pyramid way of exercising, I was doing that for quite a while. And I often incorporated very light weights into the end of the movement. So I've done the pyramid already. And then when I just needed that last amount of burn, I would hold light dumbbells, and then with my energy, contract even further without moving. And that intensified, again, the whole experience of doing the holding.
So, I mean, it's all good information. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to incorporate this. And so again, there is that wow factor that I come across whenever I find this new way to go through and do these various exercises. And but if we were going to close with something, the advice that I would want to give to people. So I've referenced in the past where we talk about the aperture on a flashlight and how you can go through and you can make that aperture really wide and really spread that beam around, or you can tighten it up and really focus it in. So for talking about bicep curls, so the bicep, again, we're going back to the Latin two heads. All right, so there's the long head and there's the short head. And the short head is the baseball, and the long head is the shelf that the baseball sits on. But then technically there's also the brachialis, which runs underneath the both of those two exercises. And you can go through and you can shift the emphasis onto different heads depending upon how you're going through and doing that exercise. So one of the ones that I absolutely love to do is with a cable, a low pulley cable, so that my arm is positioned behind me. My body's upright, but my arm's positioned behind me, and that's where I'm going through and doing the curl. You could also do this on against an incline bench if you're laying back against it. Anything where your arm is positioned behind you is going to put that emphasis on the long head. Conversely, if your elbows are positioned in front of you, that's going to put the emphasis on the short head, on the baseball. And then if you do like a hammer curl or anything where you're doing the curl across your body, that's going to emphasize the brachialis, the muscle that runs underneath. But all of those exercises, all of them, they all target the bicep. They're all targeting the arm. You're just shifting the light around a little bit in order to, so, oh, I want this to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so you focus the light over there and you do a little bit more of those exercises, but you're still working the whole bicep. So I think a lot of people, they can get lost in the sauce, man. There's all these little different variations. And if that's too difficult for you, throw that out. Don't worry about it, because again, it's consistency, not complexity, which is what they were talking about in the college of the College of Sports Medicine. Keep it simple, go through, do what you like. And so when people ask me, oh, well, should I lift heavy or should I lift light? Yes. Yeah. It's like, do both. Go through and find a way to vary that up, to vary your routines, and you'll find what you like. And eventually, and then once you find what you like and you find what you enjoy and what feels comfortable for you, you'll keep doing it. I'm not saying you can throw out leg day because you don't like leg day. It's, you still have to go through, but you may have to go through and do a little research to find which exercise works best for you. Again, I don't do a lot of deadlifts anymore. It's mainly for a safety reason. I don't really lift heavy anymore just because the risk reward is too great for me. I live in America and my health coverage is terrible. So if something happens, man, I'm going to be in big, big trouble. So it's kind of one of those things where I feel it's a safer lift. I'm less likely to get hurt and my form is better. So again, hypertrophy is my goal, but it's good to go through there and switch it up every once in a while, lift really heavy, and then switch it up and just do the body weight, the isometric holds. By going through and doing that, you're going to keep your body guessing, and that's where that's going to make you a healthier person.
Great. Excellently stated. Wow.
So an hour flies by.
Yeah, does. And I'm trying to think of anything I could add. Going back to would I do anything differently? I probably would not have lifted as heavily as I did. And again, I never intended on entering a bodybuilding or a powerlifting contest, and it was just vanity. And I don't know how much effect that had. I asked the doctors that. They said there's no way ability to tell it. You could have helped me, you could have injured me. So whatever I happen to believe is probably what I'm thinking. Uh,
Sure.
I wouldn't have risked it, knowing how painful my back arthritis and stenosis is. I would have not been as inclined to impress myself or others by doing like phenomenally heavy weights.
But I mean, you're still here and kicking, man. So you're doing something right.
Still here and kicking, and I'm very happy that we're having these conversations. I feel like the ancient of the gym. When I was in my 30s and 40s, I realized I was like one of the old guys at the gym from when I was younger. And now I'm one of those ancient guys. Like when I was going to the gym at the Olympia gym as a very young person, there was one guy who was like in his 80s, and he used to bend nails, I remember. I don't remember his name, but he was like the ancient guy coming every now and then and spends some insights or make suggestions. So if I ever get going to the gym again on a regular basis, I'll gladly fulfill that one.
And I guarantee you that Jim would be glad to have you there and for you to share your knowledge and to be a part of that community. Again, man, it's kind of one of those things. I know it seems scary on the outside if you've never had a part of you, if you're from the windows looking in and you think that you don't belong, believe me, you do. And I'll bet solid money that the biggest, scariest looking guy in the gym, he's going to be the one that's most likely to want to come out and help the people because they remember what it was be like to they remember what it was like to get started. Everyone had a first time where they had to go through and lift weights, and that's where and I think that's the reason why I advocate so much for gym, for positive gym culture, is because I want people to feel the same level of energy that we do whenever we're going through there and trying to find the way to improve our lives through physical activity.
As I stated earlier, you're also an excellent author, and you write heroic fiction, and you're always publishing something new. What is new or on the horizon for you?
So one of the things I'm really entertaining the idea of is going through and compiling the first three volumes of my Clown Zero series into what would eventually be my first hardcover novel.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like I went through I got to check the pricing and all that sort of stuff. I'm still working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but so what I'm doing with those first three Clown Zeros is just giving them just a little bit of a polishing, just a little bit of a new edit to go through and just correcting minor spelling mistakes or punctuation errors, stuff like that. Just the kind story's still going to remain the same, page count's going to remain the same, but just again just a little polishing, and then to be able to go through and compile all those together. I think I'll be under the page count of the maximum that they allow, just so that way, and that will be volume one. So the first three books will be volume one, but I'm steadily working on a variety of projects. I'm actually at a point right now where I have too many irons in the fire, and I got to get some stuff done. But to me, those are absolutely first world problems that I absolutely love to have. It's like I've got to clear up space because I got to get these books out. Yeah, it's giving me something to move forward towards. And so when I've got this much in the hopper, that means, man, things are going well. So yeah, between that and just working on that work life balance and spending time with the kids and all that sort of stuff. But so yeah, I'm really excited. Hopefully, I'll have some good announcements for that very very soon.
fantastic. And please feel free to promote all your books and things you're doing on my page on Facebook.
Sure.
Let me know when something comes out and we'll devote a show to it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
And in the interim, how can people find you and how can they interact with you?
How you promote me on Facebook is probably going to be the absolute best way. I'm terrible when it comes to self promotion. I really need to work on that a little bit better. I'm trying to branch out into TikTok slowly, but I'm working on it. But I'm getting there.
Good. Because your work is excellent and deserves to be enjoyed.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ryan. I had a great time as always. I'm already looking forward to our next show.
I did too.
I have two shows to process today, so it might be late. It might be up by tomorrow, like early afternoon.
No worries in the least bit. You're doing all the heavy lifting. So yeah, that's no problem.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night.
All right, thanks, man. You too. Good to talk to you.
Good talk to you too.